I want to start out strong, but I can never think of like a powerhouse way to just go in.
I can start at any point here, man.
Do it
Do
right
it.
now.
You want me to start right
Yeah,
now?
I dare you.
Well, we're gonna lead in.
Oh yeah. But I can delete it.
I'm just gonna say this is episode number 3.
I'm just gonna use this as the lead-in.
I figured it's
This that's happening right now.
And action.
And go. All right. So welcome to the Better Ideas podcast. Well, Room for Nuance, really.
Room for Nuance number 3.
Number 3. So I'm sitting here with Will. Hey,
How you
Will.
doing?
We got some cool stuff to talk about today, but we first want to get into this whole Patreon thing a little bit. At least I do, being the one who's making a whole $4 a month right now. It's pretty.
Thank you guys
It's
very
pretty
much,
awesome.
by the way.
Thanks to that. Yeah, it's so cool. Yeah, I can't do the headphones, but so I wanted to just talk about Patreon as a platform and kind of why I've been pushing it, why I've been sharing it on just the Facebook and the Twitter, and what we plan on doing with it, because we got a lot of cool stuff.
Where you would like to see yourself eventually.
Yeah.
Ourselves, rather. You guys included.
Yeah. Yeah, most definitely. When you say you guys included, that means that it's going to be sort of, I don't want to say a club, but we're going to try to form somewhat of a community with the Patreon patrons of this podcast by providing some extra content for the people who want to contribute monetarily, indirectly, to see the show grow, you know? So at that point, like, I'm working for them. We are working for them.
Absolutely.
So it's like we gotta go to work, you know? We have to give them something extra if they're willing to give us a little bit extra besides, you know, just listening to the show. Because just listening to the show is a great contribution.
And we're thankful for that.
Yeah, and it's awesome. But, you know, the ultimate goal is to someday make a little bit of money. Maybe right now, at least the short term. I don't want to say goal. Like, I don't really have any specific goals for this podcast. I really just have, it's more of a direction. Like right now. Yeah, it's just like, because it's not going to break my heart if none of it happens. Because right now, I'm already happy just to be doing it.
Still going to
you
be
know?
making content.
Yeah, I'm still going to make stuff, and I'm still going to release it for free no matter what. But it's just kind of, it's an open door for people who, if they want to see it grow, they can. Because I do too, you know. And so Patreon is kind of giving us and anyone else who's interested the opportunity to all make that happen. And they take less than 10%. So it's pretty incredible, like what that platform offers.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about. There are people that share the vision enough to where they actually want to contribute that much.
Yeah.
Just to see, you know, ourselves continue.
Yeah. And so
So
right
the least
now,
we could do is to give them a little something, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would absolutely see it that way too. You know, like when right now, you know, we have a few people that are contributing, and it's awesome. And I already see that as a responsibility of, you know, like we're gonna give something a little bit more to
All eyes on you.
Yeah. Well, that's when I think they will go from being just a listener or, you know, somebody who's just checking it out to a real supporter, someone who's really coming on the ground floor and investing in this early on, because I believe, you know, I'm a little biased, but I believe that it has a lot of opportunity to grow and accomplish more than it has so far. And
We're just getting started.
Yeah, absolutely. And so far I'm stoked on everything that we've accomplished and that's happened so far. And so I can't imagine if, you know, a bunch of like-minded people who actually decided that they cared about it decide to give $2 a month, you know. even $1 a month.
You want
$5.
to talk about adding fuel to the fire, man.
Yeah.
There's
yeah.
nothing crazier than knowing like people.
Yeah. And the crazy thing is, and like this is really open, because like my goal is not like money or profit. That's something I don't even like to really think about, but I would like to just not lose money on this. Like right now, it costs me $20 a month to do
It's
this
a labor
podcast.
of love.
Yeah, absolutely. And I get, I guess, $4 a month or whatever. I by the time this comes out, I don't know if that number will have changed, but yeah, I guess you could say I'm in the negative right now, but I'm doing it because I love it, and I'm willing to spend money on it because I love it.
The ultimate dream would be achieve that self-sufficiency, you know?
Yeah.
Because your monthly memberships and upload fees and all that, you know, just to break even on that, you know, that would be cool.
And right now, that only takes $20. So that's why I said I don't even know if I'd say it's really a goal, more of a direction. Like, it's just going to grow and evolve. This could be a completely different thing. I have a lot of ideas about what this could be or what this could turn into. And it just kind of solely depends off of donation. I don't want commercials.
We will never
I don't
beg
do
or
ads.
directly ask you guys.
I'm not going to try and sell you underwear or a website or a mattress or, you know, that's not what I'm trying to do here. Which means that if I were to ever actually make a sustainable income doing this, it would have to be from direct support from people who are willing to contribute. Basically, that's the only way that I will allow myself to make money off of this podcast is if it is from people who actually want to pay me, not advertisement companies that are paying me for my viewers' ears or my listeners' ears, I guess.
Yeah, because nobody gets into podcasting for the money. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, that is well, I mean, and that's probably why so many people are getting into it, is just because it's such low overhead. You know what I mean? Yeah, you just have to have a Libsyn account and some gear. It's awesome. It's a great medium, but
and in some, you know, far off fantasy timeline where this blows up and you know, we're living in houses we bought off that YouTube money. You know, you can buy all sorts of great equipment.
That Patreon money is what we're gonna say.
Oh yeah, no, we haven't breached into that world yet.
Not yet, dude. Everyone's quitting YouTube though.
Yeah,
you heard about that? That's a hot topic right now, I guess. Jared Along, you remember him?
Mm-hmm.
He or Alonji, I don't know how you say it, but he does all the like parody hardcore and punk rock songs and stuff like that. Sunrise Skater Kids and all that. He put out a video saying that he was quitting YouTube, or at least quitting using that as his main platform because they demonetized a bunch of his videos. That apparently was just an algorithm that deemed a bunch of videos inappropriate, demonetized them, just got rid of a huge chunk of his like actual income. I guess that was his full-time job. And then they just basically were like, yeah, you're not making money from these videos anymore. These ones that were, I imagine, steadily, you know, gaining viewership and
I've been
bringing
hearing a lot about people's beefs with the algorithms and standards by which
and
they
censorship
enforce their guidelines. Yeah, a lot of hypocrisy there.
Yeah, which that's a freaking great segue into actually our topic. But before we get to it, I wanted to talk about the perks. Yeah. Damn. Too bad we missed the segue. We're gonna have to bring it back around. But
we'll get it in post.
Yeah. I'll edit that out.
Fuck it, we'll do it live.
I'm not editing this. So the main perks of becoming a patron or choosing to contribute monetarily to the podcast will be, the first one obviously is just community. Like, at that point, I will see you as somebody who's contributing, somebody that I basically work for, and, you know, feel an obligation to put out content steadily. So and it will help, pay for better gear and all kinds of, just better gear would be amazing. And maybe, turn this into a full production or, into something more than just a couple microphones in a room. But another one of the things that I want to offer is early releases. So, and not just early releases, but I want to do like as soon as we finish a conversation, don't edit it or anything. Don't do like my intro and outro or anything, and just put it raw straight on the Patreon and just give it straight to the people that are contributing immediately, so they don't have to wait. They don't have to hear the intro or outro if they don't want to.
Because you do have a good bit of content of just stuff where like we're not going to air this.
Yeah,
good stuff. Funny stuff.
Yeah.
But it's like we didn't start out with any intent. We just started recording and talking. You wonder like what do we do with that? I mean,
I've been wondering what to do with it, and I've had a Patreon for a while, so I'm like, eventually, kind of just put it together.
The Better Ideas Archives.
Yeah. No, this computer has a lot of random stuff on it.
Yeah,
all kinds of conversations, but some of them are pretty interesting. Like the one with Gregory, he told us some pretty cool stories that I wasn't able to air. We talked a lot longer than I was able to air on that episode, and with his permission, maybe I can upload some of those stories to the Patreon for the supporters.
Absolutely.
And so yeah, there's all kinds, like just more candid conversations. A lot of these conversations that I have and that I air go on a lot longer, or sometimes it gets really interesting and I'll turn the mic back on later just to catch a moment that I think is really cool. And so I'd like to share those, and I feel like Patreon is a really good place to do that, and especially if I'm already looking for extra content for this little side thing with the contributors.
If somebody cares enough to give us money to sustain, this, then I mean they obviously like us enough to want to hear more.
Yeah, that's the idea, and that's what the open door is if you want it, if you want more, it's there. And I'm not trying to sell anyone anything, but
it's just one of the added benefits of being a patron.
Yeah, exactly.
Considering upload costs and all that and subscriptions, it wouldn't be conducive to just put out, stuff that wouldn't make for good, like complete episodes.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, there's a lot of that, a lot of cool stuff. So yeah, we got community, early releases, unedited conversations, candid conversations, extra clips,
hard R talks.
Yeah, all kinds of stuff. And like maybe just you and I can record some crazy drunken conversations.
We have.
Yeah, we definitely have.
We have more than a handful.
We can do more though. And I mean, we can have all kinds of crazy conversations, and the people that are contributing will have their little on Patreon. There's a community for them, like a little, it's kind of like a Reddit reel or something.
Yeah.
Where you can sit there and you can communicate with just other patrons of the podcast. So that's when we can really have some fun and like literally form a little community, and we all of people who are interested in some of these ideas that we're talking about, and just music and art and all that kind of stuff.
It's by no means exclusive, but
no, it's
just
not.
One of the added perks of being a patron.
No, but it's for me, it would be a really cool way to actually get to know the people that are listening to this and actually give them what they want, especially if they're the ones who are contributing. It's like maybe I can take requests. Like if they know somebody in my area that's really interesting, maybe I can meet up with them or try to work things out, or just form that community and get that more close-knit relationship with the viewers. That's really what I'm looking for, is just like-minded people,
Yeah.
and that sort of community. I also have a ton of art that, like, I just don't even know what to do with, and I would love to share with people, but I'm kind of embarrassed about some of it. A lot of it's not done. Like, I have songs that are in progress that I've been working on in Logic. I have, like, sketches, old paintings, poetry, lyrics, like, all kinds of stuff that I would love to share, and I'm not sharing right now. I'm not in a band at the moment, so there's a lot of music that's going unheard.
Yeah, there's
And
not a real place for it.
yeah, yeah, and yeah, I don't have a music project that's in those final stages of recording or anywhere near that right this minute. So I don't see why I can't show, some of my supporters what I'm currently working on, or maybe get some feedback.
I know T-shirts were in the works.
Yes, and that's gonna be the last one. That'll be for the $5 a month or more, which I don't have a more yet. But right now I have the $2 club, or I don't know what to call it yet. $2 reward and the $5 reward.
It just sounds like package options then.
Yeah, it kind of does. Well, and they make it into that. It's kind of that structure. But yeah, at first I made it for the band and the podcast, but the $2 one was just for the podcast and the $5 one was for the band. But I went ahead and I made the $5 one. I called it the Vanthropology Fund. And this is just a pipe dream of mine, but I have that big 350 Club Wagon van that I bought a while ago. And
we're going to gut that son bitch.
Yeah, I'm going to gut it. And if I can, maybe make enough money to pay for gas to get to another state or wherever, then I want to start doing some mobile interviews and
incorporate video.
Yeah,
that's something that's also.
I'll definitely incorporate video by then. And yeah, see, that's the thing is if I made a little bit of money from this, it would be a lot easier to justify upgrading equipment.
It will happen.
And video.
One way or another, it will happen.
Yeah,
It's just
absolutely.
a matter of how soon.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah. So yeah, possible travel. But with the T-shirt thing, if you
T-shirts,
join
long sleeves, and hoodies.
Eventually, that's going to take a bit. For now, it'll just be short sleeve T-shirts. Probably black with a white logo or just one color design. But yeah, after 3 months of being in the $5 club, I'll just go ahead and send you a shirt. Because you've already paid for it. Why not? So,
hey.
Yeah.
I have some good artwork.
Yeah.
For, if anybody doesn't know, I designed the, what would you call it?
The logo.
Yeah.
Artwork.
Current logo.
Yeah. Thumbnail.
I had some project artwork for other Better Ideas projects in the past. And it's definitely something I want to incorporate into shirts.
Mm-hmm.
We need a little teaser.
Absolutely.
A little teaser of that artwork.
Yeah, we should.
Yeah?
Definitely.
So that'll be happening here soon. Be looking out for that. If you guys want to see what T-shirts will look like eventually.
They're going to look pretty rad.
They're going to look A1.
It's going to be like the coolest shirt you've ever put on.
That's a bit of a stretch. You're putting a lot on my shoulders here.
No, dude, I'm just saying. And I got a pretty sweet deal with Glicks.
Ooh.
Who I guess I should, I don't know, give them a shout out. Glicks. They're a pretty cool store.
Yeah, they're here in Lawrence.
Yeah, they're really cool. My girlfriend is the general manager there. It's a rad store. But I got a great T-shirt hookup with them. So we're going to have really good quality materials from probably the brand 1897. I don't know for sure, but
we ain't talking about Gildan or Fruit of the Loom here.
No, it's not going to be that 100% cotton Gildan T-shirt
that
you
nice
wear once, and the first time you dry it, it just doesn't ever fit quite the same.
It comes a medium.
Yeah, that won't be the issue. And we're not going to do the big giant like band tee logo. It's just going to be like good quality T-shirt that you can wear.
Classy.
Yeah.
You want to wear it to a wedding.
Yeah. It shows that you're classy, or no, that you're formal, but you like to party.
Hey.
Said it wrong. Dang it. Ruined the joke. Okay, let's get to the main topic. Should we do that?
All right. Yeah.
I'd say that's fair.
I'm
So actually what spawned this today, and I'm pretty stoked that we're actually having a conversation the same day that I had the thought and was convicted. And I texted you. I was like, let's do a podcast, because I actually had the idea. Well, not really had the idea, but heard something that reminded me of it, and then got that conviction today.
You
Like, all
went
right,
down
we need
that
to talk
rabbit
about
hole.
this. Yeah, absolutely. And that's just kind of like this idea of taboos. And what started it is I was listening to the Bad Christian podcast, and they aired this clip of this coach that was like yelling at his kids, like pumping them up for the game. And he was using like really vulgar language and like being pretty abrasive, making them laugh and like being crazy. And somebody filmed it and leaked it, and the coach, like I think he was the assistant coach or something, got fired. And and this guy's under a lot of like scrutiny right now because of this. Apparently, like it was a really big deal. And they were just talking about how, this guy's life basically was ruined, and he lost his job and had all this bad stuff happen because he was being funny to a bunch of kids, and a bunch of people deemed that inappropriate. And even though the kids were laughing, which I understand, like and that's a whole different side story. But basically, it just got me thinking about like, what makes words offensive? What makes anything offensive or taboo? Or why is it that you can say something that is clearly meant as humor and people will take it as a sign of your character?
Yeah, or just
like you can't tell a racist joke in 2017 without people assuming that you're actually racist. And or you can't say a cuss word without people thinking that you're being offensive when it's a word. Aren't they just arbitrary sounds that we make with our face? Like
yeah, I agree that certain topics and issues have enough power to where if your stance doesn't align with the majority's sensibilities, it can cost you everything. And I mean, yeah, there are some genuine, topics and issues that you're almost asking for it, because it's so unpopular.
yeah.
Not to say that.
What do they say? Certain things you don't talk about at the dinner table.
Yeah, like
God and politics. Those are the two first ones I think that come to mind for most people when you think
yeah, and
taboo
some of them
concepts.
there's some legitimacy in some arguments, like, but at the same time, I feel as though more than ever people tend to reach, try to pick out something that they choose to be mad or offended about. And it just seems so trivial at times. Certain topics,
Yeah.
things we should be discussing.
Yeah, and we bulleted a couple of the topics just like off the top of our heads, but God, politics, sexuality / gender, race or privilege, and drugs. Those are all things that are currently very polarizing, very hard to talk about. A lot of people dig their heels in as soon as any of those things are mentioned. A lot of people have very, very strong opinions about those things. A lot of people use their views on some of those things as sort of part of their identity, who they are, their moral code.
It's so easy to assign, an entire profile of somebody based off where they stand on, the one thing about them. And I feel like a lot of people allow that to cloud their judgment when trying to have discussions or expand.
Yeah, so I guess the question is, and what kind of this idea that I'd like to portray is just this idea that maybe as a society, maybe nothing should be off limits. Maybe we need to lighten up on being offended and take it. And
so you think people are too sensitive?
See, I don't know if I want to use the phrase too sensitive or
'Cause I agree.
hypersensitive because
I will say hypersensitive.
yeah.
Because I understand there are legitimate grievances.
Yeah.
and some of the things we've brought up. But at the same time, when you go out of your way to shut people down because what they believe doesn't align with what you believe, when you get to the point where you're saying everything you're saying is fundamentally wrong,
Yeah.
I'm not going to have this conversation. I'm just going to insult you.
Yeah.
I'm going to assign all of these filters that I have,
Yeah.
based on experiences with or a common image of people who share whatever belief you disagree with.
Yeah. Yeah. But at the
Profiling.
same time, for me, and not to sound like a jerk or anything, but I'm not going to even really entertain that person that says, everything you're saying is invalid, or, like that huge Facebook thing that we had the other
Oh my
day,
goodness.
So there was an article that we
Yikes.
read that actually we'll probably end up having the guy who wrote it on the podcast in the near future, but he wrote a podcast that was about a very controversial topic, being the sort of, what would you even call that?
The whole deadbeat dad stereotype and how...
Yeah. Well, the title was like, "It's time to stop blaming men," or something like that.
I will
and
say it was a bit on the nose. Or
Yeah,
at least,
he was definitely abrasive
blunt,
in what he was trying to say.
And
Like, definitely
thing,
trying to ruffle a little bit of feathers, but that I'm not going to deny that he had some valid points, and that
but you can also
I can understand
recognize
why it was inflammatory.
But you can also recognize why others would take issue with it.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just the difference to be able to like you said, or I said rather, not agree wholeheartedly, but also be able to take that step back. Because I will agree with you that it was a bit abrasive, bit blunt.
Yeah.
But like you said, a lot of good topics were brought up.
Yeah. Okay.
And the whole shit show that
I guess that is one of those
came from that.
One of the things that I didn't add on the list of things that are becoming taboo, and I guess we did put gender/sexuality, but just kind of this whole masculine versus feminine debate,
Yeah.
and that's almost becoming a taboo in itself because of
There
way
was
of
an
feminism, it seems
explosive
like.
response from that
From
topic,
somebody.
that
We're not going to name
conversation.
names at all. Yeah, there's no.
I mean
no need for
that whole discussion, and it just
Yeah.
goes to show, how you can just trip up over something like that, and you could tell he did it in good intent. A lot of it was based in that.
Mm-hmm.
But because what he wrote didn't necessarily align with everybody's views on such a hot topic, it was a powder keg. Like, a lot of emotion
actually,
involved.
it really wasn't much of a powder keg, because if you looked at it, most people, and I would say the majority, agree with, at least maybe not wholeheartedly agree, but just say like, yeah, like it doesn't really bother them. It was really like one person.
I'm just like, yeah,
was
I can
really
see,
upset about it.
I can
and
see what he means.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
most
about
people.
as deep as.
And see, I would argue, and we've had this conversation when we did the Punch Nazi episode or whatever. Whenever we were talking about this idea that most people are in the middle of any controversial topic. Most people actually see both sides. Some people are super ignorant and they won't admit to themselves that they see both sides, but they all do. Everybody does, and they cannot deny it unless they are just so ignorant that they actually don't understand the other person's argument. But
Or at least willing to take a look at it from a different perspective.
Yeah. And so the people that are super offended about, words, when words, arbitrary words that don't, I know that words can actually hurt people, and that they actually can cause societal and cultural change. And we're currently watching language change a lot in front of our eyes. I guess I would just argue that there are certain things that we should just not get offended by. Like, I understand.
There's conversations we have to have.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I would like to propose that maybe whenever people are when they're offended at a conversation, like somebody says something and they talk about a certain thing, and that conversation inherently offends them, I would ask the question, what what is it that that thing actually has an effect on you, or is it a layer deeper? Are you projecting some sort of fear? And to me, it always seems like it's a fear. Like, anybody that is offended is really not always, but a lot of the time scared of the other person's opinion and its effect that it may have on them. You know, let's say just like low hanging fruit. Like the feminism issue versus masculinity or something like that. A lot of males feel threatened by some of the things that certain people in this third wave feminism are saying, because it almost feels like they're countering inequality instead of trying to cause equality.
Wanting the pendulum to swing their direction.
Yeah, yeah.
As opposed to true equality.
And
equity versus equality.
And
some people would argue,
I get the pendulum swinging, and so that's why I even understand this hypersensitivity right now, is because, for a long time we would say things like, "Oh, boys will be boys," and it's okay. Like, I know those meme phrases that we see as like harmful for culture. Some of those can potentially be harmful, and we do have a lot of things that we're working through, but it seems like digging your heels in and making fellow Americans and fellow humans your enemy isn't helping us culturally shift in a healthy way. Real long lasting growth happens slowly. It's not a one hit wonder. It doesn't happen overnight, and so being really, really offended at the way that somebody was raised, it's not going to work, like
berating somebody for what they say isn't how you establish understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when you just shut them down and refuse to allow them to speak because of some, arbitrary trait about them.
Mm-hmm.
Cisgender white male.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen that so many times. Like, you have no right to weigh in on this issue as a cis white male.
And I want to be careful not to try to make this about certain political movements. We're just using those as examples when we say, where we
what
commonly
you're doing
is maybe a caricature of like an SJW or like.
Well, it ties in a lot to these taboo issues, because
it does. Yeah,
there's a lot of intertwining there.
Yeah, and that is due to the hypersensitivity, which I get.
Mm-hmm.
And like we said, it's the pendulum swinging, and it's been one way for a while, and so I can understand why people are like, hey, let's call people out finally. Let's start calling men out on their stuff. Let's start calling certain races out. Let's start calling everybody out on everything all the time. And I get it, And
there's a level of hypocrisy there at the same time.
Yeah, but I guess an argument could be made that it's maybe a little bit of an overcorrection. That if we become too sensitive, then we might actually numb down and dumb down our language. We can't be as colorful. We can't be vulgar. We can't be slightly offensive. We can't be as funny, that is for sure. We can't be as open and honest if we're worried about offending people all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I would argue that is disrespectful to the people around you, because you're being dishonest. I want radical authenticity. I don't want people to censor themselves in precaution that they might offend me.
Can you imagine Eddie Murphy or Dave Chappelle racial humor in 2017?
Oh, man. Well, actually, Dave Chappelle put out new stuff, but
Yeah, seen that.
not bad.
Still golden.
Yeah, still gold. But, and that's why, that's a great example because
just
comedy is one of the last fronts where people are saying really offensive stuff and not always getting away with it now, but if it's tasteful, a lot of the time they get away with it. But I don't know if you heard on the Joe Rogan show.
It shouldn't be the only outlet for that sort of discussion, though.
No, absolutely not. But did you hear that case about there was a comedian this was in Canada, so keep in mind they do not have, freedom of speech technically as a right. So there was a comedian doing his thing at a comedy club, and this lesbian couple in the crowd started heckling him, and he did what comedians are supposed to do when
He used a slur or something.
No, he started making fun of him back, and dealing with the hecklers. That's what comedians do. When someone shouts something out, they'll listen and they'll make fun of them, or they'll use it for a joke, or they'll try to do something to make the rest of the crowd laugh. That is their job. So, of course, he picked the low-hanging fruit, and he made a lesbian joke, like called him a dyke or something like that. And he got sued, and they won. And whether or not you believe that he should have had to give them large amounts of money because he called them a name when they interrupted his comedy show, that's up to you. I'll let anyone form their opinion on that. But just the idea that he said something and was punished for it, to me, is a little bit of a problem.
Let me ask you something.
And why does money make it better? That's a whole nother side thing. But anyways.
You need monetary compensation for your emotional suffering.
Yeah.
Let me ask you something.
Was a lot of money,
ties
apparently.
into that some people would relate that to. Is hate speech free speech? Because
see, that's
what I assume would be the grounds
advocate.
there.
Yeah, is like
hate speech against them in some way. That's how they may have construed it in their court case.
Yeah. Well, and I would say I don't know what the comedian said. Maybe what he said wasn't a tasteful joke, and it wasn't funny.
And I think honestly, earlier when we were talking about taboo topics, when I said that there are some that I do understand, like there are legit grievances, there, and like why you shouldn't necessarily expect people to just like have an open conversation with what you're saying. If you're spouting hate speech, clear cut, like just garbage, okay, you're obviously not planning to have a conversation with anybody.
Yeah.
Your heels are as dug in as
Yeah. Well, but I would say that's not really taboo at that point.
But the question is how
hate.
far. Okay, how do you dictate what is hate speech? And we're talking about people overreaching and finding problems with things that really probably aren't that impending of an issue. Because I know I shared a few things with you earlier about how Taylor Swift is the face of alt-right music and white supremacy. And it was an article that was legit.
Wasn't that?
Oh, yeah, we got it here.
Yeah. Consuming
By
Taylor Swift's
Pitchfork.
music as a brown person can mean implicitly accepting that your body is not worthy of poetry.
And some people, they might look at that and be like, wow, hey, whatever. But at the same time, that's off topic.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you draw the line, without offending somebody else's sensibilities and saying, listen, that is not a serious issue. You're saying that Taylor Swift is imposing on people of color.
It's almost like we're having a conversation about semantics, or like how do you categorize something as hate speech versus and should hate speech even be like a punishable thing? Or
There's a lot of layers to this argument.
yeah, it is kind of a it is it's an onion topic, and it's kind of a broader topic in general of just talking about taboos. But I mean, this whole conversation is for me just in hopes to encourage people to talk about things that they feel
With that as an
uncomfortable talking about.
example,
Yeah.
I guess the question is why? Why do we want to find issues with things? Why do we want to be offended by certain topics?
Yeah. Okay.
Why do we want to
Well,
take
then here's-
something and sift it through a filter of preconceived notions that we have about certain
Yeah.
arguments?
And man, this connects to so many different things, but this just makes
Well,
me
good.
think about ego. Like, I mean, we're in a time of identity right now. Identity politics, just identity. Everyone's very concerned with them,
Yeah.
who they are, who
You
they
look at these hot topics and
Yeah.
it ties into people who identify
Yes,
strongly in one of those topics.
They attach their identity to it. And then so that begs the question, do they like to be offended? Better yet, do they like to be them? Do they like to be that who they are, you know? Because to it's almost like they have to portray something, you know? They have to play some sort of role. And a lot of the time it seems like that role is the victim and the person who is offended, but it seems like really their ego is what's offended, not really them, because a lot of the time when someone's offended, nothing physically or even verbally was done to them. It was to their ego. It was to their idea of them.
But it's
It
never
was-
about that in the ensuing discussion. It's always about, here's the problem with you. Here's the problem with society.
Yeah.
This is what's wrong with the world.
Yeah, but so we're not really having the real conversation at that point, then, are we? I mean,
No.
we're talking to each other's egos. We're telling each other things that we believe are facts, but it's been scientifically proven that facts don't matter when it comes to swaying someone's opinion one way or the other. In any way, facts do not matter to anybody anymore. They don't. So, what are we doing? What we're doing is we're running around and we're having all these arguments and these conversations, and we're really just projecting what we want to be our identity out into the world, and in the form of opinions a lot of the time, or in the form of race or a gender or a political party or whatever it is, whatever pick your tribe, but you're in one either way. And I get it. The problem is all the people outside of your tribe are excluded, and you will never know what it's like not to fear other people unless you have an open enough mind to not get offended at everything they say, you know? Really take in what they're saying and wrestle with it for yourself and consider it before forming an opinion about it. We don't do that anymore. Everything's so clickbaity, so short, so fragmented that we don't really take time to sit and have long, nuanced conversations. So we can really only talk in 140 characters at a time and yell at each other in 140 characters at a time and have little projections of who we want people to think that we are. But
Virtue signaling and the
yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That virtue signaling is, I think, a problem. Like,
perfectly represents the hypocrisy of some people and their arguments. I feel like you're talking about that ego. A lot of people who go out of their way to reach, and take issue with something that the average person wouldn't read into it that far, It's almost as though in berating others and refusing to have that conversation and just insulting them, shutting them down, profiling them. They almost view themselves in like a elevated position. Like,
Yeah, like you said,
I am morally
superiority.
above,
Yeah.
I'm above this person.
So that's an ego thing.
Yeah, I would say so.
It has
and
to be.
it might tie into what you brought up a little bit ago about projecting.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
So it's like they have in their mind the idea of the enemy.
yeah,
And if you're somebody that's not within
that filter
that doesn't fit their identity that they're projecting, this is me, these are all my ideas, these are my opinions, and if yours don't line up, then we clash and you're technically the enemy or whatever in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to project that out onto you. Even though if we really sat in a room for 3 hours and had to just were forced to have a conversation, we'd find some common ground. But we don't
Unless
do
you're a
that.
fucking dick.
Yeah, that's true.
No.
Not always,
No,
not everybody. Some people wouldn't last 3
Some
hours
people
in a
got
room.
thick ass skulls, and I'll be
Yeah.
the first to admit that I do. I mean, you know me better than most.
Yeah.
I have my opinions, but at the same time, I also have the ability to take a step back and empathize.
Yeah, okay. Well, not to call you out too much like on the air, but I do notice
You're
you
gonna.
like dig your heels in sometimes. Like
There's just
it's like
certain.
almost like you, but it's a good example because you want to stand against certain groups because
don't put it that.
I'm not
way.
saying no, literally like hateful groups or hateful people.
Yeah.
Like, what you're saying is you don't like
I don't
the
like people who
caricature
attack.
of these groups. These ideas like and
People
we
who
can use
attack
caricatures
based
of
on
any of
their
them. There's
insecurities.
we don't
There's
like
just-
the alt-right. We don't like the extreme left. We don't like the KKK. We don't like the radical BLM. Like there's sects of every movement. I guess I shouldn't have used the KKK in that example. That's a bad one. Delete
Well,
that
I
one
mean-
out. But like in every movement
You're
or
just
every
you're just representing
organization,
the extreme.
yeah, there's an
side.
extreme.
There's always.
And those are the ones that almost represent nobody most of the time. That's not really hardly anyone. It's just maybe a few
There's a
people with some
small
really radical
minority
ideas.
within every belief system of people
Yeah.
who take it too far.
Yeah.
Every
and
one of them.
So it's really hard not to, in your mind, sometimes paint a whole group as that, or to just be like, when someone says that I'm this, that means I can assume that I probably don't get along with them, like.
And we have these caricaturized understandings of people's beliefs, and those are the first images we jump to.
Yeah.
Or, what I say we. I mean, a lot of people we're talking about.
Yeah.
They these preconceived notions, these filters they apply.
Yeah.
They just assume the absolute worst. They kind of forget that they're talking to another person.
Yeah.
And they're like, this is my enemy because of
Yeah.
this line of text in which they briefly stated their opinion or beliefs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and see, a lot of this is people turning topics of dealing with people into issues and demonizing ideas, but sort of in a way the people just get clumped in with it. I see this a lot with Christianity, and just my experience with, there's the mainstream church, and then there's kind of the rest of the world, and then there's, I think somewhere in there is the real church, the capital C church, but there definitely is a part of a sect of all religions, really, most religion at least, but
Any organization.
yeah, really any movement or organization,
Any belief you can subscribe to.
yeah, that gets these caricaturized ideas of the other, and they kind of put up walls, and they close their doors to those people, and they don't want to engage in conversations because they know that no good's going to come from it. That Christians don't want to talk to hardcore scientific atheists, but really it's because they're afraid of their doubt. Like, honestly, I'm just going to call every Christian right now. If you get mad every time you talk to an atheist, granted, a lot of atheists can just be assholes and like really straightforward about how they talk about God and their
And those the
disbelief in it.
people that represent the worst of their belief.
Yes, exactly. But if you talk to somebody who just, has a nuanced view about it and just legitimately doesn't believe in God, and the idea that they don't believe the same thing as you makes you angry or offended or scared, that's fear. And that is a you problem. That's not them. You shouldn't be demonizing them as the other. You should be thinking, well, why is that such an inflammatory thing for me to think about? The thought of somebody else not believing the same thing as me. So like for, when you go up to an avid atheist as a believer and it offends you, are you offended by their ideas? Did anything they do hurt you? Or are you afraid that what they're saying is valid and that you have to consider it?
And that's an example of reflecting an insecurity.
Yes.
In that sense.
Yeah. I keep seeing that pattern, of fear projected on other people. And a lot of the time, even the victims are almost playing the victim as someone kind of forcing people to be victimizers, which really that makes them the victim almost. Like they're playing the role of someone who is offended when what they're doing is really they're scared and they're hurting people, and hurt people hurt people. But they're scared of those people. So when we meet head to head with someone who doesn't have the same opinion as us or the same view, or someone radically different from us, if we come at it as us, as, well, this is who I am, these are my ideas.
From a guarded position.
Yeah, from a guarded position, we are never going to move forward with anything.
And nobody's saying you have to alter your beliefs to have a conversation with somebody that you might disagree with. It's that ability to hold that conversation. Kind of puts your ego aside a little bit.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, whether you grow from it or not, or it solidifies your position,
Yeah.
like at least it's being talked about. And I
Yeah.
think a big problem is we put up those barriers, what we've been talking about. We assume the worst based off what we know of somebody and what we think they represent. And it really draws away from the ability to have conversations about real issues.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost like a cry wolf, situation. It's like, well, we need to be up in arms about absolutely everything.
Yeah.
What happens when something, that is a real issue comes about and everybody's just, I already know where this conversation's going. Time to fucking put on my gloves and enter this Facebook thread.
Yeah. Yeah. Dude, that brings up something so important right there. That just is kind of an example of, I guess, a byproduct of this whole thing that we're talking about, is that usually the first thing that people do in any circumstance is post about it. I'm guilty of it sometimes too, so we're all hypocrites here. But we, a lot of the time, like to immediately form an opinion and then immediately go get in some Facebook arguments about it, or immediately just go and argue with
Twitter
people.
beef.
Yeah. And I mean, that's just another systemic byproduct of all, this identity politics, social media, internet,
The year
all these
2017.
things. Yeah, absolutely.
Current year.
But first of all, the first thing you do is not post to Facebook for anything. Like, it's not, I don't know.
I'm going to share this Occupy Democrats photo.
Yeah.
Take that, Donald Trump.
Exactly. But I don't know. Do your movement, do all that, be involved, go do actual things. But why does it have to immediately be projected? It's just this, we're all little, what are you trying to go over there?
Yeah. Sorry, continue.
Well,
I don't know how to operate a Mac.
It's all good.
I'm a pleb. I'm a PC.
But it's like we're all like I said earlier, we're all just projecting. We're all sending out these ideas and these images and these opinions, basically, to each other. Yeah, I actually don't have time on it. I have no idea. I'll edit it. It doesn't have time. But one thing I wanted to bring up, I don't even know.
Sorry for
I
the
lost my
interruption.
trail of thought. You're good.
I
But
done goofed.
This is being used and utilized by certain people, this recreational outrage, and we live in a really, really polarized time because of this. Maybe not because of it. It's, maybe that's a question of the chicken or the egg sort of thing. But, we have Donald Trump as our president.
That in itself is an inflammatory topic.
That in itself, just if you bring up that name, changes the whole vibe of a room. I'm not even kidding. Like, the second you bring it up, seriously, I don't doubt how many awkward family conversations are going to happen tomorrow at Thanksgiving the moment anyone mentions anything about our president. Just because, like, the minute anything like that's brought up, the whole energy in a room changes, because that someone's going to be offended by something within the next few seconds.
And we're not even using Donald Trump as a specific topic of conversation. It's just an example of how,
it is just an example.
Shields up everyone.
And
we're talking politics.
All right, yeah, no.
Thanksgiving 2K17 coming to your dining room.
I will say that as far as social issues go, I'm not at all a fan of the way that Trump polarizes people and capitalizes on these inflammatory topics and further separates our country socially.
But is he to blame or is he to blame for how far people take it, though? I mean, because at the end of the day...
No, he's playing it. I'm not saying that he's even doing the maniacal thing, because he's doing it so flippantly and openly. But I'm just saying, if people don't see it, then they're missing something. That he plays on every controversial topic strategically to divide people. That's what I've been seeing, at least, is whenever it comes to any issue, he'll say something, especially on Twitter. I follow him on Twitter, and it's honestly astonishing. But he will say something that he knows is inflammatory and that people are going to argue about. And then we all sit there and argue about it when it's not the conversation we should be having.
I'd have to disagree a little bit there, not to talk too deeply into this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think he intentionally does that? Or do you think the explosive reaction that people have, in the conversations surrounding this stuff is a result of this mentality we're discussing? I mean, it certainly doesn't help. Well, but at the end of the day,
I think that he's just kind of a child, and he has the same mentality, that a lot of social issues are stemming from right now. But I'd have a hard time believing that what he's saying isn't somewhat intentional. It's like, you have to think, does he not think? Because his thumbs apparently tweet. That is him actually typing on his phone, apparently. And whenever he says something, I ask myself that question all the time. I'm like, does he not know that what he's doing is really, like, hurting social issues, or is he just saying his opinion and really just not caring what people think about it?
You said something there. Harming social issues, like, how so? How are his words directly hurting?
This is just an example. And see, I'm not, like, I don't hate Trump. I'm not even talking about Trump. No,
here.
We're not.
We're talking about this underlying issue.
But that's a taboo that we can't talk about. And it already is getting more intense because I brought up Trump.
Well, that's a whole nother level of conversation.
Yeah.
I think the thing here to focus on rather is the reaction to it, because
I fully agree.
we're kind of standing up for people, having a nuanced discussion and just candidly stating their beliefs and having the ability to do so without getting attacked from all sides. And I think there's no better example of that than this conversation we're having here, because is he solely to blame for people's reaction, or are the reactions a side effect of this outrage that we're experiencing?
I mean, I don't think it could not be a both and statement. Like, I think as the president, you have some responsibility socially to try and
Quell people's
hold yourself as somebody that, like, say what you want about Obama, but one thing I actually respected about him is that he just kind of kept it together. He was socially, he was smooth. Did a lot of really messed up stuff behind closed doors. Let's not talk about the ridiculous amount of drone strikes over the past 4 years, but like the way that he handled things was smooth. With Trump, all right, here's an example.
You're just dealing with two totally different personalities.
I totally agree. And I'm not going to say that, if we had Hillary, it wouldn't be the same thing, except she would, try to be socially a better president, but do probably worse things behind closed doors.
That public and private personality.
She I don't like that. At least with Trump, you get what you get, I guess. Like, that's all right, I guess, whatever. But, all right, I want to get out my example of when there was the whole, like, we talked about the Nazi thing and how everyone was really mad at his reaction to that he said, there was issues on both sides or whatever, and everyone's mad that he didn't say something really bad about these Nazis. That his reaction wasn't just sheer disappointment. But then whenever the whole kneeling in the NFL thing rolled around, he made a huge deal out of that and talked about how the NFL is going to lose viewership if they don't start punishing people, which that's whatever. But
they have lost a huge chunk of their viewership, though.
I believe it. That's fine. I don't really care about the NFL, to be completely honest. But that is just something that I see, and that's just something that I picked up, and was just like, why did he feel so strongly and outspoken about the NFL, but not literal Nazis marching down the street?
Have you heard him address that at all? Have you seen?
What?
Have you heard his address, him addressing that issue though?
Which one?
The whole
Nazi thing?
Yeah.
I saw his speech.
He did, and people said it came too late.
Oh. See, I don't know.
I guess the point is how much energy he's directing towards certain issues.
Yes, and that's what I mean, is just how much energy he puts into certain things. To me, it doesn't look like a president who is trying to help with separation and this polarity issue that we're having. I'm not saying as a president, we don't even have to get into that. But
at the end of the day, though, is it the job of the president to sway everybody's?
No, probably not. But they do, I believe, have a certain responsibility to hold themselves in a way that's not going to cause further division within its own society. If you ask me.
Obama and Bush 1 or Bush 2 didn't. I mean, look what happened when we entered the Middle East. That was polarizing.
Yeah, no, it totally was. But they tried. They tried to smooth it out. You could see them trying to smooth it out. I don't see that happening right now.
I think people stopped trying that, like Obama's second term in office.
Yeah. I don't know. We don't even talk about politics, but it's a taboo thing, and
the polarization's been going on for a long time.
Yeah, but
there are certain aspects of this day and age that certainly do not help with this polarization. But I'll say at the end of the day, we should hold ourselves responsible for the conclusions we draw. Mm-hmm. We can't blame any one person for, big complex issues like this.
Yeah, and in no way was I blaming Trump for...
Yeah, no,
I'm just using that as an example of something that's taboo. Obviously, we talked about it longer than I
Yeah.
intended to talk about it because you can't, we can't. When
It's
one
how
person says something, you have to counter it. You
Yeah.
feel that need because you have an idea that you want to defend. Everybody does. And we have to try to recognize it when that happens.
Yeah.
And whenever something like this comes up, it shouldn't be a painful conversation because we should all want what's best for humanity in the
Yeah.
long run. So
I agree.
I just don't. I don't know why any conversation has to be difficult or taboo. You know. Sorry, did I cut you off?
No.
Oh. Well.
I would say it's because people anymore, or majority of people rather, have allowed themselves to become vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it be either, how easily offended they are. We talked about that. Or certain political stances. If you carry yourself with this mindset constantly that you are fervently opposed to this idea, you're just making yourself vulnerable. You're allowing yourself to be hurt by what you've deemed the enemy.
Mm-hmm.
You get yourself worked up and pissed off, and at the end of the day, you end up making your belief system look bad when you lash out.
Yeah. The people who are on the furthest ends of those movements are, I would definitely argue, hurting the movement more than they are helping. You know, like we talked about in the Punch Nazis episode. Like, if you're digging your heels in and hating any group, then you're not helping your cause. So it seems like the best way is to not dig your heels in and to not be offended, or at least try your best not to.
Or
I
rather,
don't know.
not necessarily, change the way you believe, but
Yeah.
approach it differently. Because you have to recognize that you're not in the span of 140 characters going to change the lives of, thousands.
Yeah.
There's nothing to be gained from adding fuel to the fire that is this shit show of taboo topics
Yeah.
that we have to deal with.
Yeah.
Think about it. How can you make this better? Are you helping right now? Or are you just getting stuck in a quagmire of back and forth disagreement?
Yeah.
Giving in to your ego and just kind of making a mire of social commentaries.
Yeah. Which a lot of us are social commentators today, it seems.
Everybody has their own thing, and by gosh, it's who we are.
Well, I think that we are seeing the pendulum swing, and that's kind of what we're talking about right now, being taboo, being hypersensitive, being polarized, all these things these ideas that we're talking about socially are examples of growth, hopefully, in a positive way. I mean, there's really no way of seeing the future, but I'm an optimist, and I feel like it's probably the best time ever to be alive. So
we just have to recognize when we're giving in to that darkness that we're talking about.
I'd say one of my takeaways that I wrote down is that judgment is fear. Anytime that you're judging somebody or making a judgment that you're going to be offended by, then I would say to just check yourself and ask yourself, is there anything that scares me about that conversation or that thing that is offensive to me? Is it because that thing inherently is harmful to me, or is it because I'm afraid of it or afraid of something that it offers? Or is it just because you were raised that way and that's just what you believe. And if so, then I challenge everybody to question those beliefs too, because everything needs to be re-examined at some point. Everyone needs to keep growing. Also, we need to just cut people slack a little bit. Like, I see a lot of young people get really mad at older generations, especially when they make like slightly racist remarks or say something that they literally just don't
Back in my
know.
day.
Yeah, they just don't know is offensive. If someone does something they don't, yeah, exactly. If they say something that is slightly offensive and they don't know, maybe they shouldn't be too ridiculed or punished for it. Maybe you should cut them a little bit of slack and just explain to them why, because that's a lot more productive than painting them as the enemy.
And that's something you can apply to any argument.
Yeah.
Just preconceived notions.
Yeah,
trying
absolutely.
to gain a different understanding. Why does this person think that way?
Mm-hmm.
And am I helping the conversation, or am I just putting up a wall
and
furthering it?
Am I bridging gaps or burning them?
I think the key takeaway from all of this is right now in this day and age, we have the ability to do things that we never have been able to do.
Yeah.
And how we utilize, our connectivity is crucial in how we go forward. So we have this tool at our disposal, and as of right now, I think the trend is people are using it to feed into their own egos and to, build fear and appeal towards their argument and try to shut down other people's arguments. Mm-hmm. It's not conducive for growth.
Yeah.
So I challenge everybody to, when you catch yourself digging in your heels and you have the ability to recognize, which is a powerful thing, to recognize within yourself your biases, and when you are digging in your heels, if you can do that and try to learn from somebody, try to converse with them, maybe try to help yourself grow or help them grow, you are on the right path towards improving.
Yeah, dude, that's
social
so
commentary.
true, man. Like, you gotta try. I mean, I just said it earlier, but bridge the gaps. Like, if you're not helping people, if you ask yourself that and you're not helping people grow, if your goal is not to get rid of the separation, you gotta check your priorities, because that needs to be for humanity. That needs to be everybody's goal, is to just get rid of the divide, get rid of the polarity, because it seems like that's where we're all gonna be happy. That's where we're gonna have less fear. That's where we're gonna have less stress and anxiety, less war, less problems. If we just have that in mind of, am I trying to help the situation, or am I trying to distance myself from this group?
Yeah, and if you just want to jump in and throw a few jabs and then not represent, your argument, beliefs, just don't waste your time. You're wasting your time and everybody else's time. You know what you're doing.
Yeah.
You just.
Yeah, very true. Cool, man. Well, we're gonna end it there.
I would say so. Thanks for listening, guys.
Yep.
Shadows